Morning, folks. I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School, and I'm back out here at the hunting camp this morning. I just got done fixing myself a little bit of coffee, and I thought what I'd do today, I wanted to change the camp up a little bit today. One of the things I want to do is I recently acquired a military surplus camouflage dome tent in this woodland camouflage. The woodland camouflage is definitely my favorite of all the different camo patterns, especially for the eastern woodlands. It blends in really, really well when you're hunting and things like that. And this dome tent is a military surplus camouflage, woodland camouflage dome tent. So I'm going to pull down the Sportsman's Guide 1 pole that I've been using, and I'm going to put that tent in its place. Everything else is going to stay the same. But one of the things to realize is, and if you look around my camp, there's a lot of items in here that are not surplus because they're either Pathfinder gear, stainless steel wise, or, you know, a table that's made by Costco or something like that, you know, buckets that are made by Uline. But there's a lot of military surplus within this camp. And I think that if you look back to the old time woodsman, you know, the Horace Kephart, Warren Miller era of time, even back into Daniel Baird's time, things like that, those guys used a lot of military surplus because it was something that was available to them post-war era, and it was something that was heavy duty. Most of the stuff that's made for the military is heavy duty stuff. Now, not always, but most of the time. And I find that a lot of military surplus, number one, is fairly inexpensive to buy, and two, it's fairly durable, and then three, if you can find it in woodland camo, it matches really well with a hunting situation. So it just kind of is the best of all worlds for us in this day and age a lot of times. So I look for military surplus, and I use quite a bit of it. I use a surplus canteen cover on my Pathfinder canteen set. The Molly cover fits perfect. I've been using a Molly pack like this one back here in the background. It's got a Pathfinder patch on it that's probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old. I've been using that thing forever, and it's just a great day pack for hunting and things like that. If you're just looking for a grab and go pack from a hunting camp to throw some things in for the day, it's great for that. So I recently acquired this military dome, and I wanted a 2-man dome tent. I haven't erected it yet, so I'm going to try to put it up. I had one like this at one point, and I sold it. So I want to set this military dome tent up today and get it in place of this one pole. And then I want to kind of talk to you maybe about something in this camp that I use a lot, which I call the bucket system. And that goes all the way back to Harvey the Bucket and the Journal of the Yurt. But I truly believe that for a conveyance camping type scenario, 5-gallon buckets are one of the most convenient things you can possibly have. You can buy lids for them for just about any purpose, from a hunting seat like I'm on now that rotates and it's padded, to a toilet seat, to the Gamma lid that screws on to store things in. There's lots of different lids you can buy for 5-gallon buckets, and lots of different pouches you can buy for the outside of them, organizers for the inside, organizer lids by companies like Plano. They're just a very adaptable item for camp. And I wanted to kind of show you how I utilize those in my hunting camp, because I only carry 3, and there's a reason for that. I don't want to carry 10 buckets with me, but these 3 have specific purposes, and they're multifunctional the way they're set up. So we'll talk about that today too. First of all, let's get this tent down, let's get the other one up, and then we'll have a discussion about buckets. All right, so let's have a look at this dome tent. Got a nice heavy ripstop bag. I really like that. All right, so we got a bag here. It says Marine Combat Tent, tent repair and stake bag. All right. We've got, looks like the tent right here. The tent itself is here. And then I assume we have a cover for the tent. And probably a bag of poles. So you got a really nice, and this is a Diamond brand. This is a Diamond brand tent. This is like brand new stuff. I mean, this is really, really good. And it got instructions here on how to set it up. It says USMC Combat Tent right there. Really nice looking situation there. So we're gonna go ahead and get this thing laid out, get the poles in it. We'll go from there, but man, oh man, I'm impressed with this bad boy for sure. Again, you know, military surplus, always gonna be good stuff. So let's figure out which one of these is the tent. I'm gonna guess it's this one, because this one is the tan color. This is probably the cover, which is really, really heavy duty. that goes over the top. So we'll get the tent laid out first in our footprint, see what we got. Okay, so like we initially have it laid out, doors in front and back here. And we'll open up the stake. All these ropes and shot and adjustments on here and stuff, man, this stuff is all really, really heavy duty. I like that. Like that's our poles. So we'll get those bad boys out one at a time here. Shot cord, aluminum poles. All right, we got 3 poles, and they're all the same length, so it doesn't matter which one we put in where, evidently. So we'll just start with one of these corners here, and we'll, looks like we got a loop to put the pole through right there. So we'll start back behind us here, and we'll get a pole in here. I'm sure this is like a typical dome tent, as far as that goes. We'll go through this pole here, through that hole, and keep on rocking. We'll do the same thing down there. Okay, on each of these corners, you got 2 grommets and you've got a clip. I'm sure this clip is for the cover of the tent, and then you would put this grommet through on one of these just like this, and that's going to hold it. And then you've got a stake loop on here as well. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is meant to be a 2-man job, by the way, but we're going to get it. I've got all the poles in now. You can stretch the corners out and stake it down. Then we'll have something going on here. All right, next bag. Tent pins and repair tools. Looks like there's a lot of stuff in there to include a patch kit, a full sewing kit, all included in this setup. Really, really nice. I mean, you got seam sealer there, you've got thread in there. I'm sure there's a needle in there somewhere if there's thread. That's a really nice repair kit. Got some extra bungee cord in there for the tent poles. Everything you'd need to repair this tent is in that bag. Plus you've got a bucket load of tent pins in here. And it looks like you have a top mesh as well you can put in there for like a pocket, like a gear pocket. So great, great little setup. Let's get these pins out, get these corners staked in, and then we'll get the top cover put on. One thing you got to be sure of is you don't twist these straps, because this clip has to be up, and this is your stake loop. You got to make sure you don't twist that strap when you're putting this pole in and get this toward the bottom. I had to fix one of them that I had twisted. That's just a real quick tip or trick there. All right, so here's a look inside before I put anything under it. Now, what I do see here is that there's no footprint for this tent. That kind of surprises me. There's nothing really to keep it from leaking through. There's still nylon on the bottom. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my Tyvek sheet and slide it underneath here to kind of protect that bottom from getting holes punched in it. That's kind of shocking, but it's okay. If I have to put a footprint under it, that's fine with me. Now I've got this guide gear pad that I'm really, really fond of. Pretty good price on it. I think it's like 69 bucks on Sportsman's Guide site. Got a little moisture on it right now from the other tent. It was leaking a little bit. That's why one of the reasons I decided to change tents. We've been getting quite a bit of rain. It was leaking just a little bit. However, I wanted to try this tent out anyway, so this is a good time to do it. But there's plenty of room in there for that long guide gear pad. The thing's almost 7 feet long, and there's plenty of room in there. So I'd say you got an 8-foot footprint in here as far as length goes, and it's definitely double wide. So it's definitely a 2-man tent. With one guy in there, you got plenty of room for peripheral gear and things like that you want to put inside. Okay, so another thing you can do, colder weather. If your pad doesn't have a high enough R value, which this one's got a really, really good R value, but also you can use it to protect the pad on the bottom. I use a doubled up 90-10 wool blanket, like a twin wool blanket doubled up underneath that pad, then put the pad on top of that. That increases my R value of the pad, and it also protects the pad from punctures at the same time. Now, in the woods, a lot of times I'll just use a piece of Tyvek, but in colder weather, that wool blanket is a good trick, especially if you have conveyance where you can carry some extra things. All right, so I just threw this cover over the top of it. We're getting ready to get it pinned down. You can see that it's full woodland camo. It's got a full door on the front side. The back side, where there's a full door on the back side of this tent, is just a slit door. So you've got two different doors on here you could put either direction, but this one I believe is the one that goes to the front because it's your full door. All right, so as I said, each of these corners has a clip that goes into that clasp at the bottom. And then it's got a tensioner there that you can pull it up tight once you get all your corners down. Now, once you get this cover on here, it forms a vestibule in the front. Give you some space to store boots, gear, whatever the case may be in these corners. It zips up over the front to give you a good rain shell. You shore the back up just a little bit better, but all four corners are staked down to those clips, and the fronts are staked out for the vestibule. All in all, I got to say that's a pretty nice system. No doubt about it. Even if you had to pay a couple $100 for that surplus, if you could get a kit in that condition, I'd say you did yourself right for sure, because that's a beautiful setup right there. All right, guys, so we got the dome tent set up in place of the one pole. A little lower profile, easier to trap heat inside of. It's got a lot of nice features. You can open screens from the inside for ventilation, things like that. You can have a vestibule to put your boots outside the tent if you want to. Some nice conveniences to something that's a little smaller package and a little less profile in the woods because it's camouflage. Now, obviously you've got peripheral gear out here. Most of it's dark colored or camouflage as well. So if you're looking for a hunting camp that's, not gaudy and loud in the woods, you can set one up pretty easy like I have out here. Let's talk about this bucket system real quick. I have 3 of these 5-gallon buckets. A little dirty right now, but each one of them has its own purpose. 2 of them have these swiveling seat lids on them for seats in camp or for hunting stools, whichever I choose to use them for. But each one of these buckets really has a dedicated function beyond that as well. So this one, and these new lids are kind of hard to get off. This one is my, what I would call, dry fire bucket. There's enough material in here and fire starting gear to start a fire after a hard rain all night long. So if I need a fire really, really badly, this is my basic emergency fire. And there's an entire fire basically in this bucket. I don't have to worry about collecting anything. I have everything I need in here for that, including fat wood, mini inferno, a cigarette lighter, kindling, fuel. It's all in this bucket. And that stays in this bucket so that it's always dry in camp. Okay, the second bucket contains my Woodland Chef Kit. Everything that I need to cook with, including utensils. We can go over that later if we need to. I've gone over my Chef Kit once before in a video as far as what I've added to the stock Woodland Chef Kit on the website, but we can go through that again if people request it. And then I keep washing up stuff in here as well so that I can use this bucket to wash dishes in. Pretty simple, but also this stuff can just be taken out and I have an empty bucket for other uses if I need it to make it more multifunctional in camp. Okay, the third bucket has this gamma lid that screws on, that has a seal around it. And this is my food bucket. I've got a few extra bags in here for things that may be opened. I've got flour, brown sugar, cornmeal, lard, the typical sundries that I use to cook with to add to or replace wild game, including some just add water stuff like potatoes. Again, we can go over this in its entirety, or we can talk about it a little at a time as we're pulling things out and cooking in camp this season. But this bucket is good for at least a week to 2 weeks worth of food, as long as you can obtain some meat sources off the landscape. So as you guys can see, for a mobile hunting camp, something that you're gonna take out on a side-by-side, you really don't have to have a lot. I've got the toolbox, I've got the 3 5-gallon buckets, I have a 5-gallon water jug, I have a 4-foot folding table that's black, that's small, that I can work on top of, as well as the top of this box. I have one small box that we haven't talked about that basically just is a brew box. It's got coffees and things like that in it. It's got some honey in it, some sugar, those type things are in that brew box. And it's just a small box that sits underneath the table, protected and out of the weather. Other than that, not a whole lot. Very, very easy to put in the back of a side-by-side with no problem whatsoever, and plenty of stuff for you to use in camp, especially if you can, again, supplement that food with meat from the landscape. And I'm not trying to fool anybody out here and bring steaks out here and cook them on the grill like I don't have a cooler sitting behind the camera when you know that meat's going to go bad, especially in hot weather. What I want to try to do with this camp is I want to try to introduce you to what we can do off the landscape and how we can add that to some simple sundries so that we can have a good meal in a hunting camp. So I hope you guys are enjoying this series. We're just kind of getting started with it. I've got a lot of things going on right now. I do have a film crew flying in here from Ireland on Monday morning to film me training their hosts for a new series that's going to air in Ireland. Don't even know the name of the series yet. I don't have any information other than the film crew's flying in for Monday, Tuesday, part of Wednesday to film me training their hosts. Then they're leaving, and I have to leave for Smoky Mountain Knife Works for their Dealer Days event on Thursday, and I'll be there all weekend. So if you're in Seviersville, Tennessee, or around that area, especially this time of year when the leaves are turning, it's absolutely gorgeous down there. I'll be down there putting on some cooking demonstrations, things like that, with our Pathfinder Stainless Steel, with my buddy Kevin Baxter from the Pathfinder School. He is our camp master out here, Salty Dog Outdoors, and Matt Mercer, who's also an instructor at the Pathfinder School, Black Hat Bushcraft. He will also be there with me. So the three of us will be at Smoky Mountain Knife Works all weekend, cooking up some food, good conversation, sitting around, having a good time. Stop by and chat with us. We'd love to talk to you. In the meantime, I appreciate your views. I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, and for our business, for our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. I'll be back with another video vlog in this series as soon as I can, guys. Thanks.